Sometimes the most transformative leadership happens not at the top of a mountain, but in the heart of the storm. In the frenzy of emerging markets, complexity becomes your proving ground. Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Leadership Lounge. I'm Antony Alex, your host. Today, we begin Season 3 with a leader whose career has spanned continents, sectors, and paradoxes. Someone who has built in chaos and mastered the art of winning where others hesitate. Ravi Venkatesan is one of India's rare executives who has leadership credentials across private, public, and social sectors. He led Microsoft India from 2004 to 2011, during which India became one of the company's fastest growing geographies. He then took on roles such as Chairman of Bank of Baroda and today leads global initiatives in energy transition and mass entrepreneurship. In his journey, Ravi proves that leadership isn't just about scaling a business. It's about turning turbulence into advantage, about learning from what India demands and using that as a blueprint for global competition. As he wrote in Conquering the Chaos, Win in India, Win Everywhere, the challenge of India sharpened companies for the world. In our conversation today, we explore how to lead when the rules aren't yet written, how to build capability in the midst of chaos, and how resilience, courage, and meaning become the new currency of leadership. Join us as we step into the lounge.
Main thing I want people to understand about leadership is it's an act. This is a process I'd learned at Microsoft. We had a great process there called Hot People, Hot Jobs. Innovation should be fundamentally to advance humanity.
Yes.
That means lift up everybody, not just the top 1%. If you ask me why we are not moving along at a faster rate, I think it has to do more than muscle, it has to do with a mindset. Rubbish statement that says AI won't replace you. A person using AI will replace you. So don't worry, you just be the person who's using AI. It's very simple. If you don't want to be replaced by a machine, stop acting like one. And the only way you can be excellent at something is if you do what you love and you love what you do.
Ravi,
Hi.
Good morning and welcome to the Leadership Lounge.
Hello, Anthony, finally.
Yes, finally. How was it to navigate the Bangalore traffic today that got you here?
Well, auspiciously, it was very, very easy this morning. So arrived here well in time and yeah, it's a good start.
Wonderful. All right. So you've had a very interesting leadership journey. So I want to get right to it so that we can get as much of your journey for our viewers, right? And I want to go all the way back to, or maybe not all the way back, but somewhat back to HBS, Harvard Business School, when you finished and you sort of turned down offers from, I think, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs. Is that how it was? What exactly was going on in your mind? Did you have absolute clarity on what you wanted to do then, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I graduated in 1992. By some accident, I was at the top of the class. Not only that, I had written an important article in the Harvard Business Review, which is quite unusual. So there was a lot of interest in me, and in particular, I showed up at the McKinsey recruitment thing, and they were quite keen. And I could have probably ended up following those days the herd split into two, half went into consulting, half went into investment banking.
Right.
Venture capital entrepreneurship had still not taken off in a big way. And also that year, unusually, an unknown small company from Seattle called Microsoft was recruiting. This is the time when we were still running Lotus 123 and WordPerfect, not Office. But I decided to essentially go back to my old company, which I'd spent 4 years, Cummins Engine Company, essentially because I loved manufacturing. And also because I'd built up some goodwill. They were willing to give me much more responsibility right out of B school compared to anyone else, where you still had to earn your cred. And Yeah, so many years later, I was telling Steve Ballmer this at Microsoft, and he said, "Well, you made a financially suboptimal decision." So yeah, it was like essentially.
You could have collected a lot more options if you had joined.
Had I joined then, it would have been winning a big lottery ticket.
Right.
But I wouldn't, frankly, looking back, trade the experiences I had for anything else. So, at Cummins, I ended up going to the southern part of the US, running a very large factory in Charleston, South Carolina, very large factory outside Atlanta, Georgia. And, there was a lot of turnaround, restructuring experience, which I was getting at the age of 27, 28. And we had, I had a challenge with the UAW, which was trying to unionize one of our factories. I had a challenge.
The UAW is?
United Auto Workers, a unionization drive, which is always very tough and intense. If you see what's happening at Starbucks and Amazon right now.
Yes, of course.
It's not a fun time to be, managing a business. The other thing that happened was we had some tough race relations also in our factory outside Georgia. So the Ku Klux Klan took a keen interest in what was going on and me. So it was pretty hair-raising. So my plant manager and he was a big African-American paratrooper. So he used to come pick me up. He had this pickup truck with a lot of guns. And so it was, nerve-wracking. But these are the experiences that make you a leader. And, that resulted quite soon thereafter in coming to India in 1996 as a super young and naive CEO of a very large joint venture between Cummins and Tata Motors. And so I don't think I would have had these experiences, and they are so important for forging me into the person and that I am. And so no regrets.
Wonderful, Ravi. Ravi, you've spoken a lot about the T, right? In terms of, and I'll explain what I mean by
What's
that.
the T?
In terms of the
Unless it's
horizontal and the vertical. Horizontal as a generalist and going deep vertical as a specialist. Could you throw some light on that? If you could explain that a little more in terms of why is it important? Why is that T important in the shaping of a professional, a leader, etc.?
Yeah. So I think the thing to realize is we're living in an extraordinary moment in time. And what is most extraordinary about it is the rate of change. If you see how quickly things are evolving. Even last week, we could not have imagined that the US and India, which have been, so close, would be at this point. And so we are seeing this in every sphere. We see how AI is advancing. ChatGPT-5 now, announced 2 days ago with unprecedented new capabilities, blah, blah, blah. So what is the most important thing for every one of us is the ability to adapt to new situations, like COVID happened. Those who could adapt loved it. Those who couldn't adapt had really, really bad mental health issues. So the key is adaptation. If you look at my career, I didn't have to adapt, but I chose to adapt. So I spent many years in manufacturing, then I went to software, to IT services, banking, social sector in many different countries.
Right.
And so I learned to adapt. And people are now, for me it was a choice. For younger people like you, it's not going to be a choice. You have to. If you're going to adapt, you need not only a growth mindset, which we can come to, but you need a particular skill profile, which is, as you correctly say, a T profile, where you're deep in some area, you have real depth, real expertise, but you're also a generalist on top of that. It's the generalist that allows you to navigate across businesses, across industries, across situations. And the depth gives you self-confidence, okay? And you can build around what you're good at. So in my case, for instance, I would say my depth was in engineering and manufacturing.
Right.
And then I was a general manager on top of that. What does a general manager do? You basically apply common sense to any situation, and you're able to inspire and mobilize people behind you to get something done. And so people say, oh, how did you go from building diesel engines to Microsoft or Bank of Baroda? I said, well, the common thing was people. Every one of them had people. whether it's employees or stakeholders who control the power. And your job as the person in the middle is to align people. So this sort of general management skill is, I think, going to be extremely important. People who are very narrow experts can find themselves unable to adapt to a new situation. And things can be very difficult and painful.
As you were describing this, and I'll come back to this in our segment on AI, because
sure.
Yours is a voice that I think a lot of people love to hear and take very seriously, particularly with respect to AI, careers, leadership, etc. Right? So we'll come back to that. But continuing with your journey, right? Is there a moment where you felt like you stopped being, because you were a very, very young leader, right? Whether at Cummins or at Microsoft.
It was young at that time.
At that time.
Today, people in their 20s are doing far more astonishing things. It's kind of humdrum. But at the time, it was unprecedented. Yes.
Is there a moment where you felt like you stopped being just a professional or an individual contributor and you'd moved to
there
leadership?
Was a very, very clear moment. So what happened is, in 1988 or 89, I forget, I applied to Harvard Business School for admission, and I was rejected. So I was very sort of disappointed because I thought I was quite good. And so those days there was no email and all that stuff. So I found a phone number and I called up the admissions office. Eventually I found a person who would talk to me. Turned out to be the admissions officer. And I said, look, what happened? She said, well, to be honest, there was nothing interesting about you. So she said, we get a lot of smart applicants, we get 100,000 of them. And so I said, what would make me interesting? She said, well, one thing you'd lack is leadership experience. So, or, you haven't led teams, and so we've got people who are captain in the US Army and have seen combat in some place or the other. Those are the kind of applicants. So she said, amongst other things, go get some leadership experience and demonstrate success in that arena. So I said, okay, no problem. I went back to Cummins, my boss, and I said, I want to lead something.
I want to be a leader.
Yeah, and he said, sure, get in line. Okay, you're still a kid. So in 4 or 5 years, there'll be opportunities. And there are plenty of others also. I said, no, you don't understand. I want it. I'm in a hurry.
I want it now.
I want it now. So it turned out there was an opportunity, which was, there was a small factory in Columbus, Indiana, which was making fuel pump parts, and it was about to be closed. It was slated for closure. And it's because it was old, from the 30s, it was uncompetitive, dark, dirty. And and because of that, the morale of employees there was very low. You also know there's no future. It's going to be closed in 2 years or 1 year or whatever. And therefore, there was nobody willing to be the plant manager. So I said,
I'm ready.
I'm ready. And they said, okay, go. I did it for 2 years. It was the toughest job I ever did in my life, because the guys didn't want to be there. They were all guys. They were big, white guys. None of them had gone beyond high school. I was totally different, both by education as well as culturally. And those days, that was wild. American manufacturing was going through a real bad spot. Japanese were eating our lunch. And guys would bring their toolboxes with guns, pornography, knives, drugs, the works, liquor.
Wow.
And they would wear T-shirts which said, look, I live for Fridays, making it very, very clear that they really don't want to be here. So on Sunday nights, I would actually literally dread Monday morning and having to go in. But it turned out to be absolutely transformative. I learned to be not just a manager, but a leader. And by the end, here's the really cool, not only had we turned around the performance, and it lived on the plant lived on for a number of years after that. But one of my referees for the application to Harvard Business School was the head of the union, who said we were so skeptical when this guy showed up, and he taught us more than anybody else. And that's what got me in. So
what did you do that was exceptional, Ravi? What did you do that was different, or how did you turn it around? It's a great story.
No, the turnaround was a large part establishing trust with the guys. When I started out, I was a terrible manager. The only person I'd seen manage anything was my mother. And she used to manage the maid who does the jhadu and all that, or the whatever. And she would stand behind them all day, peck, 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 ya nahi kiya, this is not proper. And so that's how I managed these people. And so they would also, like schoolboys, go and hide in the toilet. And I'd go into the toilet and say, hey, get back to work.
So you were a micromanager. And how?
Yeah, and it's just terrible. And then one day it went click, look, this is stupid. Okay, we better start managing them as adults, and better start behaving like an adult. And so, we gradually came to agreement on expectations that each shift will clean up and mop up when they leave, leaving it fresh for the next shift. Just basic rules. And then these are all computer controlled machines. And they were expected to just press the button, unload parts like a robot. And I actually started teaching them programming. And there was a guy who was 56 years old, and he took me home before I went off to business school. And he gave me a gift, which I still carry, which is a pen, a cross pen. And he started crying. He says, you taught me more than anybody in my life. And so I think it was this establishing trust. And then, things happened. So that was the 2 years, and I call these crucible moments in my book. Leadership happens not just by going through life accidentally. It happens through these incredibly difficult experiences. Somebody loses a father when they're still 8. Suddenly your childhood is over. You have to grow up, you have to be an adult, you have to support the family. It's traumatic in the moment, but it makes you a leader. This crucible experience made me a leader.
A leader, yeah.
Yeah. And like that, other crucible experiences. But this was one of those, what I call defining moments in my profession.
You've also spoken about leadership being about constantly being in motion, right? In terms of doing things or keeping, being in motion essentially.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've lived by?
The main thing I want people to understand about leadership is it's an act. It has nothing to do with title like vice president, CEO, chairman, minister, or secretary. None of those things. It has nothing to do with formal power or lack of power.
And you've brought that out in your book as well.
That's right. The most important thing I say, it's how you act. And an example I like to give is very simple. You're stuck in a traffic jam. Nothing is moving. It's a crossroads. It's a complete snarl up. Or in front of a railway crossing. People line up on both sides, and then stupidly you can't move after the train goes. And usually somebody will come up. That one individual start directing traffic, things start moving, and it clears.
And that individual vanishes back into the...
Who was he or she? Who asked them to do this? What authority did they have? Nothing. That is leadership. And I think the important thing is this capability is there in every one of us. And if you're going to be successful in this time, this 21st century, you need to strengthen this muscle, if you will, and not wait for permission, not wait for direction, but see what needs to be done and just get on with it. And in that sense, since you asked about continuous motion, yes, you do it.
If you're always in motion, you're likely to be progressing forward.
That's
and
right.
Also as a leader, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just a little bit, just to round off this segment, Ravi, you're an engineer, essentially, fundamentally, and you think like an engineer. Engineers solve problems. Leaders probably have to live in them. How do you, for the lack of a better term, let me call it a tech brain, right? How does your tech brain or an engineer's brain deal with, how do you marry that with being a leader? Does it come naturally, or do you think you have to sort of work a little more at it?
Leadership requires the whole brain, left brain, right brain, both. Engineering education and practice tends to strengthen your left brain, which is your comfort with numbers, for instance, numerical skills. So seeing data, some people just freeze.
Yes.
Tells a story. Or analytical skills, being able to take a problem and break it down in a logical way, decompose it and reconstruct it. Those kinds of things. Or just fundamental engineering principles. Okay, lid of the bottle is stuck. No, just lid in hot water, you'll get differential expansion. It'll open.
Yeah.
So very basic physics, engineering, etc. So that's what it trains you to. But leadership is about so much more. Leadership is about connecting with the empathy. It's about connecting with the heart.
Because
the
you're dealing with
person.
humans at the end of the day, right?
That's right. And that's why I have some confidence in an AI world. That they're still humans. AI will not be able to connect with you in the same way, will not be able to establish trust, which is the basis of followership. It cannot understand yet what needs to be done. And so the capacity to visualize and imagine what needs to be done, these are all very important human qualities which you need to build up if you're going to be a leader. But yes, I love my engineering background because it made me versatile.
So Ravi, moving from Cummins,
Yes.
and your Cummins experience is really one for the ages, to Microsoft, right? Where, when I say one for the ages, because of the fact that, the whole story of how you managed a large group of white men who were not particularly keen on spending their time at the workplace, but yet did so, and you managed to get what you wanted out of them, and they managed to get what they wanted out of a job as well. So I think it was a win-win in that sense. But Microsoft, very different story. And you essentially took it, from a company that had potential to, let's say, a powerhouse, right? And by the time you were done with your stint at Microsoft, I think Microsoft India, it was the second largest market for Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
Rough analogy could be to sort of, you took it up like a rocket ship.
First of all,
Yeah.
no one individual, and I'm not being sort of incredibly modest or anything. It was a transformation.
Yes.
It wasn't a linear journey. So it's like caterpillar to butterfly. It's not just a bigger caterpillar. So Microsoft 2003-4 to 2011 was a completely different creature. But an enormous number of people contributed to
Naturally,
it.
of course.
Yeah, I was a useful actor in that situation. Yeah. So
how did you keep this rocket ship steady while ascending at, furious pace?
yeah,
because you were growing. That's the speed at which Microsoft was growing over those 8 years, right?
Yeah, it was growing really fast, both in terms of people, scope of businesses, revenues.
And ultimately, a Microsoft product literally touched every single working professional at a minimum, and found its way into the homes of people as well. So,
and into rural kiosks and every such thing. No, so look, I came from outside the industry. And in fact, when I was being recruited, those days Bill Gates used to interview everybody senior that they were hiring. It was his quality check. And I said, Bill, the only reason I came is because I would never again get a chance to meet you. I don't even do email. In those days, my secretary used to print my email and give me a folder at the end of the day, and I would mark it up and
say, send it back.
Send it back. This is 2003. So he laughed and said, you better learn. But in any case, I knew nothing about the company, the industry. So what I did was I spent some time, the first few months, talking to lots of people. And what shocked me is the degree to which the company was distrusted, disliked. Okay? So people admired the success of Microsoft and Bill Gates, but customers didn't trust the company because it was seen as a Microsoft tax. And the tax collector would come only once a year and say, okay, pay up.
Time to pay up. And Indians were not used to the concept of paying for
software. Yeah, software should be free. Okay? And the government was also very, very concerned about abuse of a high market share position or monopoly position. So across the board, the issue that I saw was lack of trust. So, one of the things I've learned to do is get very clear, what are the one or two things we have to do here? It's not 22 things. So we had to establish trust, and then we had to become relevant. It turns out India was irrelevant to Microsoft. We were 100 million or so in revenues, less than 1,000 employees in an ocean out there. And equally, Microsoft was irrelevant to India. Okay, some desktop software with everybody steals. Okay, so success meant basically trust and finding a way to become relevant. And so really it was all about two things. One is getting alignment amongst the people who had the power to make this happen. And that starts with Bill Gates, because if he gets it, then everybody gets it. And it had to do with important stakeholders in India, particularly Infosys and TCS and Wipro, the big IT companies that were rocket ships. It had to do with government, big buyers like Reliance and so on and so forth. And so we had to figure out how to align and get relevant to all these people. That's what, in a simple sense, those 8 years was all about. And luck plays a huge role. Not many people are going to admit that luck plays such a central role. So I joined in 2004, January 1, and I was there till 2011. This period was the most explosive growth in the Indian economy in history. From 2004 to 2010,
Yes.
we were basically growing 8%, 9%. And the second thing that was happening is our IT sector was booming after Y2K.
Yeah.
We were lucky. We rode that wave, okay? So for people who come at another time when things are dry and there's a financial crisis, we did have the 2008 financial crisis. But I'm saying timing also played a huge role in the extraordinary...
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
And a huge slice of luck.
And a lot of hard work on alignment.
You know, before we move to the next question, Ravi, I just wanted to ask you, while you were trying to position the Microsoft products to the Indian workforce, what was your strategy? Did you focus more on B2B? Because you mentioned a lot of big IT companies, Reliance, etc. Was your strategy that let me just first work with these corporates, get Microsoft products in there, and then we'll figure out whether, how to get the B2C market?
Yeah.
Was there any conscious thinking on those lines?
There was conscious thinking. So one of our advisors, close advisors, mine personally as well as the company, was late Professor C.K. Prahlad.
Oh, of course.
So C.K. said, I created an advisory board that was just extraordinary. Dr. Ashok Ganguly and Mr. N. Vittal and Ramadore and just
very big names.
Very wonderful people. So C.K. said, look, if you think about the pyramid, the population pyramid or the business pyramid, if you're going to be successful as Microsoft, you have to be relevant to the top, you have to be relevant to the middle and to the bottom. The top are the big companies like Infosys or Reliance and ICICI and whatnot. And you have to figure out how to bend your business model to them. And that was actually not so easy, okay, because they didn't want to pay global prices. They thought, so we didn't have rupee billing, we didn't have India data center, all those things we had to do, okay? Then the middle is consumer and small businesses, and that required a lot of innovation. We had our own large R&D center in Hyderabad, so there was tons of smart people who were willing to try and figure out how to drive innovation for the middle. And the bottom is basically 1 billion people who live on less than $1 a day. And there you have to partner with the government to figure out what can we do at scale to lift up the 1 billion. So we very intentionally drove these strategies. And when we look back, we were very successful at the top. We failed miserably in being relevant to consumer as well as small businesses, okay? And the company still doesn't do well. I think it is wisely under Satya Nadella decided to focus on productivity for large companies, okay? And then we did a very, very good job at the bottom of the pyramid. For instance, we came up with this wonderful digital skilling program, teachers and students in the poorest government schools, and we partnered with state government after state government after state government to deliver training on how to use Windows, Office, PC, browser, all that stuff. And it was all done in localized languages and a curriculum that was highly adapted and approved by that state. And so when you look back, 40 million kids have been through this program.
Fantastic.
Okay.
They're also future users of
future users.
Microsoft
So
products.
it was about long-term self-interest. So we had these wonderful programs at the bottom of the pyramid, which I wrote about in my first book called Conquering the Chaos. But the truth is, we all love talking about successes and not about the things we tried that didn't work. But all our innovation to try and be relevant using the scenarios of cricket and Bollywood to Indian consumers failed completely. We were the first to offer mobile search with Airtel using Bing. But then we were crushed by Google shortly thereafter.
And Bing became, but it's not Google.
Exactly. So many things we tried which were wonderful experiments.
Sure.
But we had a new form PC called Veda. And Veda combined normal computing with a television screen Right. So in homes which don't have much space, don't have a lot of income, this was a very nice device. HCL loved it and wanted to take it to market, and Seattle killed it. Wasn't invented in Redmond. So like this, there were a variety of really good ideas.
That could have been a game changer if it had been.
I don't know about a game changer, but it could certainly have been very helpful.
Product.
Very helpful. So it was a wonderful 8 years.
And to sort of wrap up that segment, Ravi, so if you were to, just so that people understand, right, what leaders go through, of all the ideas that you may have tried, what percentage actually works? Because even a leader like you has seen in Microsoft itself a lot of failure in terms of ideas that did not work, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it now, looking back, what would you say? 20% work, 30% work, but those that work really work.
Like it's a portfolio. It's like venture capital. You bet on 10 ideas or 10 entrepreneurs. One is a rocket ship, a unicorn, home run. Yeah. 3, 4 are okay. 5, 6 are don't work out. And so I think the same kind of percentages happen, which means you better have a large portfolio
of
ideas, because then you've got some home runs, and we had our home run.
Moving on, we have a separate segment on BOB, so I'm not going to go. Then I'm going to go to Infosys straight away.
Oh, good grief!
Walking into a room full of, it was, you joined at a very turbulent time, right? In terms of what was happening at Infosys at the leadership level.
No, I joined at a reasonably okay time. I joined in 2011, right after Microsoft. Mr. Murthy said, "Now that you're free, would you consider it?" And I said, "It would be my."
You were co-chair.
No, at that time I was just a board member.
You were just a board member.
Yeah, the co-chair happened during a moment of crisis later on. So 2011, 12, 13, 14 were all pretty
relatively peaceful.
Relatively normal years. There's the usual moments of excitement, but nothing extraordinary.
And your transition from, again, just being a board member to a co-chair. Can you talk a little bit about what that was and how did it happen?
Everything makes sense, as Steve Jobs says, in hindsight. And so in hindsight, what Nandan sort of he put it very well. He said, look, the company was going through multiple transitions at the same time, so it became a perfect storm. One was the board had a number of the original founders. In addition to Mr. Murthy, it had Chris Gopalakrishnan and Shibulal and some of the original early
of the original 7, I think 6 were probably still there, right? 5 or 6.
There were about 3, 4 of them.
Yeah.
And so there was a great understanding of the business, a great connection with the organization, the employees, and so forth. They left at the same time. And so we transitioned from being a founder-led board to a professional independent board overnight without realizing the consequences. The second thing is that the company went out and hired for the first time an outsider as CEO in the form of Vishal Sikka. Never in the history of Infosys had we had an outsider CEO. In fact, we had only 3 CEOs up to that point. And
all founders.
And at that time, what the industry was also going through a huge transition in terms of moving to the cloud, and there were very different dynamics. There were the H-1B visa challenges, blah-de-blah, there were lots of things. So we didn't recognize in the moment how severe any one of these transitions were, and we were going through 3. And what ended up happening is we became quite divided in our views on how to address all this. So you had the founder, Mr. Murthy, who still had a keen interest in his baby, and he had very strong views.
It's always hard to let go.
Then you had the CEO who was struggling to establish himself and his own ideas. And you had a board which was also divided in terms of what to do and how to deal with these challenges. And so what I decided is, look, we can't end up going down in history as the board that fiddled while Rome burned. Today you let's look at safe companies in the US. Look at the board, how the board of GE performed. They let this iconic company go down the tubes. Boeing, Intel. And I said, Infosys is the most iconic company that India has seen in recent times.
Yes.
And how will we be judged as a board? So I thought that the core issue is, how do you get everybody aligned behind a single power center? You can't have 4 centers and 5 centers of power. you need a single cent. And so Kiran and I in particular decided that, look, we need to get Nandan out of retirement, much as he doesn't wish to do this. And we need to figure out how to get everybody aligned around Nandan, because he's the only one who's got both the stature, the moral authority, the connect with the rank and file of Infosys, the shareholders, and will create the sense of confidence.
So he would have been a unifying figure.
He would have been, and there was no other unifying figure that everybody could rally around. So if I take any credit, it was in stepping up and persuading Nandan that
you need to come back.
He needs to come back. It's not something he was keen on doing at that moment. He had built his own life and had his own priorities, and I think things worked out after that pretty well. But that was, I think, an instance of leadership, because it would have been quite convenient to just be there or get off the board, which a number of people did. But I think we ended up saving an important company, and it has done spectacularly since.
Of course.
So it's a good feeling.
Ravi, so I want us to now spend a little bit of time on your very transformative time at Bank of Baroda, right? Public sector transformation is often seen as mission impossible, for the lack of a better term. What gave you the belief or audacity, or call it what you will, that it could be done? Because you made some very significant transformations in BOB happen during your leadership.
So you're talking about the BOB turnaround.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was 2015, and I got a call out from Raghuram Rajan, who was governor.
Governor then.
And he said, would you consider being the chair of BOB? And he explained also. He said, look, these public sector banks, they've been badly damaged, huge bad loans, and we want to, have at least one or two lighthouses of success. And the government then, this was the first Modi government, Arun Jaitley was finance minister.
Yes.
They were very keen on public sector reform, banking reform. And they said, look, we want to also get somebody from the private sector and demonstrate that we can bring in talent laterally. And I said, Raghu, look, again, just like the old Microsoft story, I'm the least qualified person. I don't know banking, and I don't know public sector. And he said, that's a good point, but would you do worse than the guys who messed it up? So
who are all experts anyway.
So I said, yes. And, what my guess was that, first of all, there's this window where the government seemed serious. There was something called the PJ Nayak committee that had made recommendations, and the first Modi government was very serious about this. My friend and classmate Jayant Sinha was Minister of State for Finance, and my friend Raghu was RBI governor. So I said, look, the stars have aligned, and if not now, when? And
if not me, then
and
who?
If not me, then who? Because I've been writing about all these beautiful things. Now you get a chance and you chicken out. So I said, look, let's give it a shot. Who knows how far we'll get. I must say that during that 3-year period, I got personally, and we got as a bank, tremendous support from DFS, Department of Financial Services, as well as RBI. So without that backing, nothing would have been achievable. I think looking back at the 3 years, we accomplished a lot. But I don't know whether I would say it was utterly transformational. Okay. I think it is highly regarded as an experiment.
And an experiment that really succeeded.
Yeah, but they decided not to repeat that experiment, interestingly.
Yes.
So part of the credit definitely goes also to Jay Kumar, who came along with me as the CEO. At the end of the day, the CEO is who does a lot of the doing. And what I was able to do is complement him very well by aligning the board to take a lot of risks and making sure that the power was entirely in the hand of Ministry and RBI, that they were backing a lot of these experiments. Jay is a risk taker, almost to the point of recklessness. And so he tried some very, very, very bold things. And people were really nervous about it. The employees were nervous, and the board was nervous, the ministry was, and I was able to keep everybody calm and say, look, let's try this. Because you can't get transformation by doing the same things the same way. The Einstein definition of insanity. We have to do things differently. So let's see these as experiments, proceed cautiously, and feel our way to a better future. And so that's what happened. So for instance, Jay and I decided that, look, we don't want too many people from the outside, but we do need some expertise from the outside in what he called specialist functions, like technology, or in terms of treasury, or wealth management. This is something where the bank did not have a lot of depth. And we said we have to selectively bring in talent from the outside. And so we probably brought in about 30 people. But the employees were up in arms. So they wrote complaint letter after complaint letter to the ministry, and they would refer everything back to me and the board. So I had to make sure that the board was highly supportive of this experiment. And we then had to put guardrails around the experiment. Maximum number of people that Jay can bring in is so many. Then we had a shadow manager system where each of the lateral hires from the private sector would work with and under somebody from the bank, senior from the bank. So
that's like a senior from the bank had to be a mentor or somebody.
So like a two in a box for the function.
Right.
And so we de-risked some of these things. Okay. We took a huge bet on technology. The bank was in the dark ages on IT. So we created a board committee on IT, which I chaired. I brought in a very eminent person from IIT Bombay, Professor Deepak Pathak, as an expert. We brought in Ramki, who was the former CTO of Citibank globally, as an advisor, and the bank's own talent. And we poured in money into modernizing the infrastructure and so forth. Eventually, we created a subsidiary company so that these changes would live on. So a tremendous amount of experimentation happened. Like the old Microsoft example, many things worked. Some things didn't live long after I left, and some things didn't work overall. But people remember it very fondly as a golden age. And
employees, when you say people, you mean employees, possibly customers as well?
Employees, customers, I would say ministry, former, like Anil Khandelwal, who was a former transformational leader of the bank. I think he has a high appreciation of what we attempted.
This is also the period when the brand and the image got a refresh, right?
No,
I mean,
that was during Khandelwal's time, and about 10 years prior to that. So we didn't.
You didn't have anything to do with that.
No, we didn't do all that because we focused on fixing the core.
Okay.
So the balance sheet was tattered. So how do you clean up the balance sheet and recapitalize it? Mm-hmm. How do you prevent us from getting into the same mess again? How do you make the bank way more digital? And how, most of all, I think, if you ask me what was the strongest legacy out of this, it was actually the work we did on leadership. Yeah, so, it's a bank of 54,000 people and had a 100-year-old bank, lots of history, lots of pride, but they hadn't built capability. And so our capabilities, particularly leadership capabilities, were quite a bit shorter than the potential of the bank. So one of the things that Jay and I decided to do, and the board backed us fully, is we said, let's do a large-scale leadership transformation of the bank. And we called this program We Lead. And we identified 5,400 of the people to put through the program. There was a senior level program, a mid-level program, and a more entry-level program.
Sure.
And what we did was usual things. Put people through assessments, give everybody 360 feedback, which in itself was shocking. One senior person came to me crying, tears of joy. He said, in 35 years, I've never got feedback.
From my subordinates.
Yeah, subordinates, peers, boss,
Boss would have always given feedback, right? I mean, that's part of
in the public sector system, everybody is rated good.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. Okay. So the precise feedback, Ravi, you're screwing up in these ways, and by the way, that's your, great towering strength. That sort of coaching feedback
doesn't happen.
So everybody got that feedback. We brought in inspirational speakers and exposed them to Mr. O.P. Bhatt, who had done a transformation at SBI. All those kinds of things. That was fine. But the most important thing we did is put them to work on big challenges, transformational challenges. For instance, when we joined the bank, on average, it would take 14 days to open an account for a customer and give them their checkbook and debit card. 14 days. And, HDFC and all that would do it in an hour or two.
Right.
So one of our projects was, let's match and beat the
Private
best
sector.
in the private sector. And that team did through something called tab banking. So everybody got basically a tablet, and we built an app so that using Aadhaar as KYC, etc. We just did what other banks did, and we brought it down to less than an hour.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, so we identified a number of such challenges and got people to work in teams, and then we observed how they did. And basically, we found about 250 people who were really exceptionally effective leaders in this public sector construct. Okay? And what we then intentionally did with the help of HR is started moving really good leaders to the really important roles. And when that happened, performance changed. This is a process I'd learned at Microsoft. We had a great process there called hot people, hot jobs. What are the most important roles in the company? Who are the smartest leaders we have? How do we make sure that these two align? Not by randomness, but by being intentional. So I repeated this hot people, hot jobs. I got Jay and the others to do that. And I think that was a really transformational thing. Over time, I think many of these leaders have now risen to the top. Not only that, the government has raided BOB for its talent, which is, I think, a very good thing. And so the alumni of the bank are leading the various other public sector banks. I think this was a lasting legacy, if you will, of that
your time there. Okay. Ravi, one point that I want to just dive a little bit deeper into is, you mentioned that you brought in a lot of talent from outside, right? Some talent. When you say some, could you put a number to it, like a percentage?
Less than 30. So in percentage terms, it's tiny. But they were very critical roles and at senior levels.
Doing that in a public sector bank can often cause a lot of heartburn, heartache, ripples, earthquakes, call it what you will.
All that happened.
What kind of systems and processes did you put in place in advance of that? Because there are likely to be pay gap issues, there are likely to be integration issues, even though the number is tiny, but they are at senior influential places, right? How did you manage this?
It was very painful. And I found that this is painful in any organization. Way back in the 90s when I was running the joint venture with Tata Motors. In Tata Motors, there was a great divide because the origin was a truck company. And Ratan's Indica project was trying to get it into passenger cars. And Ratan would show all his love for the car guys. And so there was a joke there called car guys and bekar guys. Okay? So it was the same divide, even within a private sector company. So we had all these challenges of integration in BOP. I think, and as I said, the complaints to the ministry were enormous. And they would all come back to me and the board. So I think the most important thing is that the board played a very important role in saying, look, this is not just out of control CEO doing crazy things. It is a very calculated experiment that we need to do to shore up talent. And I was lucky that we had board members, and some of our board members were not people I had brought on. The mayor of Baroda was on the board, a young guy called Bharat Dangar. But he was a very bright guy, and he said, look, I see this is needed, even though he's a mayor and a BJP politician. And so normally his empathies would be with the people who were raising the complaints. We had a chartered accountant who turned out to be a very thoughtful guy, and he was a BJP party spokesman. I said, let's leverage that because he has influence in Delhi.
With the government.
Let us use him to keep people calm, saying, look, this is a controlled experiment. There's going to be some noise, but we're watching it carefully. Don't worry, we won't let it go out of control. Okay? We had a fantastic professor from IIM Ahmedabad who was a professor of HR. So I said, you run the HR committee, boss. Okay, so we'll run these decisions through the committee, so it's not just seen as a maverick CEO, but we're doing this. So these
as a team. So you want to position it as a team effort.
Yeah. Fortunately, the secretary in the ministry was Anjali Duggal, And she said, look, you can't have transformation if you don't address some of the people issues. But just let's be careful about it and not let it go out of control. So these were one thing. The second thing is we really did a lot of work to tell the new people to be humble. There was a lot of coaching, because you can come in from the outside, think you're smarter than everybody else, and the reality is you're not. It's just that you've had opportunities and exposures different from those who grew up in a public sector bank.
Absolutely.
They're every bit as smart, and if you had gone through their experience, you'd be exactly like that. So really, really hammering home humility with the new people was quite important. I did something which I think was quite important. I played an important role, which is with a lot of the senior old-timers, I developed a very deep personal connection. Okay, one-on-one. I would, for instance, many of them had children and they wanted career counseling.
You would do that.
I would do that. Okay, it had nothing to do with the bank.
Sure.
But it had everything to build up equity and trust with them. And I'd say, look, boss, make this work. Okay, take this person under their wing and make them succcesul. And they would.
In a way, you were trading favors.
I was trading favors.
And which is totally okay, because that's how you get the job done, right?
Yeah, we're all in touch. At the Diwali time, the sweet boxes come, the flowers
They pile up at your house.
Yeah, all those things. So I'm saying it was not a technocratic experiment. It was profoundly a social experiment as well.
And which reinforces the belief, and I think you've championed this all throughout. It's very evident in your book as well, that even in an AI world, it's people that really make the difference, right? Empathy and connection.
I read what's going on in Air India.
Yes.
What is Air India? That it's a challenge of integrating all these cultures.
Yes.
Okay. So it's public sector to private sector, merge Vistara, merge Air Asia, all these things, and it's somewhere they have. I think the software side has gone a little awry. And so Bank of Baroda was fundamentally an experiment on the software side.
So if I were to, just sum up everything that you've said so far, Ravi, and I feel like my takeaway is that I think a very big part of your success and what you attribute your success to is stakeholder management, which you seem to have done brilliantly and beautifully, which is managing your employees, but also stakeholders like the board, shareholders. If it's a public sector organization, then the government, all of that is a big part. Yeah. And the second part is people.
I think it is the same formula, whether it's Microsoft, Infosys, Bank of Baroda, Global Energy Alliance. There's nothing different.
Yes.
In any situation, there are key stakeholders. They have the power to make this thing work or not work. My job, your job as a leader, is to align their power behind what you want done. Okay? Perfect. You don't have power.
Yeah.
As Bank of Baroda, for instance, even though I was appointed by Government of India, my appointment letter came, it was 5 pages. 3.5 pages said what I cannot do. You will not carry a business. In those days, they didn't allow the business card also because they're afraid you'll use it to persuade a credit officer to give a loan to your friend using the chairman logo. So I called up Jayant Sinha and I said, boss, what is this? You're expecting transformation, but you've only told me what I cannot do. I have no powers. He laughed and said, look, use good judgment. We are with you. So I had no power, no authority.
On paper at least.
No, in reality.
Reality as well.
Okay, the paper merely confirmed that. If you had any illusions, it sort of told you you don't. And my job was to use the power and authority of ministry and RBI and key shareholders and board members to align behind what Jayakumar wanted to get done.
You have been a big proponent of leading by influence, and that's clearly brought out in everything that you've done.
This is it. And in future also, more and more people are going to have to figure out how to accomplish incredibly difficult things without authority,
no mandate, titles, no authority,
no power, nothing. Okay, so this is the challenge of leadership in the 21st century.
Brilliant, thank you. And as I round off this BOB segment in your professional journey, just wanted to sort of round it off with this one last question for you. If the life of BOB until now, Bank of Baroda until now, were a book, and you got to rewrite one chapter, which one would that be, and what would you title it?
I wish I could rescript the ending. So I took on this experiment because the government was extremely serious about reforming public sector banks and basically over time making them much more independent, that they would not be meddled with by the ministry, but there would be this interface called the Bank Boards Bureau that would be more, and so they would be the ones who are actually playing the role in the governance of the institution. We would be able to bring in much more independent board members and therefore chart an independent course. Gradually, some of the shackles on the talent side would also become fewer. This was the plan. This was not a dream.
Yes.
It was the part of the script, the blueprint. Somewhere along the way, Mr. Jaitley, the finance minister, became unwell and stepped back, and the government developed other priorities. They did a forced merger of these banks, so we were forced merged after I left with Dena Bank, and so it didn't play out the way that it was intended to. So I wish I could have re-scripted the ending so that those things had actually done, because I think there's a phenomenal bank with unbelievable potential. It's every bit as capable as the best private sector banks if given half a chance and a level playing field. And I'm a little disappointed personally that it didn't play out.
An interesting part of, and I guess this comes out of you being an engineer, you have said that innovation should enhance or add to the quality of human life, not just patents on a shelf.
I don't know if I said that.
I think you have.
Okay.
Or let me rephrase this. Do you believe that to be true, or that to be something that you believe?
I believe the innovation should be fundamentally to advance humanity.
Yes.
And
Okay.
that means lift up everybody, not just the top 1%. Today, all over the world, the bunch of R&D and innovation, the smartest minds are innovating for the top 1%.
Yes.
Okay, which is why you have things like Blinkit and so on and so forth. Yeah.
What's the one innovation that made you go, this is it, which covers everything that Ravi Venkatesan stands for or espouses?
If you said one, I would say the cell phone. So when the phones came, originally a toy for the wealthy.
The top 1%.
The top 1%. Particularly in India, we had a tremendous amount of business model innovation by first Reliance and then by Airtel. And so the cost of access, minutes, became extremely affordable by everybody. At the same time, the Chinese and Taiwanese drove down the cost of hardware. So buying a feature phone, this is before the smartphones came, became extremely affordable. And so by 2002, 2003, it became clear that this is going to be absolutely transformational. And it ended up being the biggest poverty alleviation tool in history. Right?
Especially in India.
All over the world. Africa is the same.
Yeah.
If you said what's a close second, I would put India Stack with UPI and Aadhaar, and I think that's a game changer
India's
as well.
digital stack.
And that again is not a 1%er, it's a 100%er.
Absolutely.
So I think these are the kind of innovations we need to see more of.
Ravi, India is often seen as a country that's overflowing with ideas, but underwhelming in terms of scale and execution, etc., right? What do you attribute this to? How can we change this, or what's the muscle we haven't built yet?
Well, we've got a tremendous amount of talent and we have a lot of ideas. But if you ask me why we are not moving along at a faster rate, I think it has to do more than muscle, it has to do with a mindset. So I think we are held back by a number of mindsets. The first is an elite mindset. Okay? Everybody, not just elites like you and I and the people watching this, but babus, neta, business, we all have an elite mindset, which means what? We want shiny things, if not top 1%, top 10%.
Sure.
So, for instance, we want to modernize railways. So, we want more Vande Bharat trains. The vast majority of India is still riding on traditional trains.
Yes.
And there the safety is miserable, the food is miserable, the experience is miserable. So instead of trying to lift that up, same thing with education. Okay, we want more AI engineers. That's good. We should have more AI trained engineers. But when foundational literacy is so miserable, don't we need to lift that up?
Yes.
We are celebrating our healthcare system. Again, the Manipals, Apollos and Maxes and whatnots.
They cater to the 1%.
1%. And we are celebrating how much private equity is coming in and the valuation.
Again 1%.
Not only that, you should be crying and worried stiff that the price of medical care is going to become unaffordable because of the private equity demanding its returns. We don't care about the fact that the primary healthcare centers work
or don't.
That's the making them work so that you and I would want to go to a primary healthcare center. So I think this elite mindset that is pervasive is one of the things that is holding us back. Then there are many other things that are holding us back. For instance, Indian companies don't invest in R&D and innovation. Okay? That's true of even extremely cash-rich companies like Infosys and all who spend nothing, peanuts.
Why is that? If it ain't broke, why fix it? Meaning continue to invest in getting more cash?
I don't know. I think it's a better question to ask some of you others. But the truth is, we don't. Whereas Chinese companies are spending 10%, 15% of revenues on R&D and innovation.
But Ravi, you've just to stay with that point and to dive a little deeper, you have led many of these organizations, right? So you have a sense of what the mindset is.
Yeah.
You, for example, have you tried to tell these organizations, why don't we invest more in R&D?
Yeah, actually the greatest success we had was in public sector in Bank of Baroda.
There you go.
Where it was a board, actually in many respects, public sector has enormous freedom and in some respects it has no freedom.
No freedom.
But we were able to invest heavily in innovation and it worked out, okay? In IT services like Infosys, I think their business model is too rigidly plugged into a financial margins and growth and whatnot. So I remember we had a huge debate about taking down our margin a bit in order to be able to invest in marketing, growth, chasing larger deals, etc. And only after Nandan came were he and I able to make that shift. Till then, the company was just rigidly locked into a financial model. Okay, so there are a variety of reasons why people seem to be locked in, and if it ain't broke, why fix it? Okay, the machine's still churning out cash. Golden eggs. The goose is laying golden eggs. All this stuff seems distant. Okay, and the problem is then you run into a wall. So I think the lack of willingness on the part of even good promoter-led businesses to truly invest in innovation is a giant issue. I think at a government level, again, we underinvest hugely in R&D and innovation, except for a few jewels like ISRO and a space program and so forth. So again, the issue is not muscle, it's mindset.
In fact, one of the leaders of a much smaller company, maybe a 300, 500 crore revenue company, has put in place a system where he's told his leadership team that their KRA is to ensure that more than 30% of the revenue of that year must come from a product that's not older than 3 years.
Correct. This is the old 3M metric. Yeah, so more power to this person, but he is an outlier. We need many more.
We need more like him.
Yeah.
Ravi, to round off this segment on innovation, what would you say is your go-to mantra or buzzword for sort of making innovation more of a behavior? How do you make it a part of a person's...
Or the culture.
Culture, behavior, whatever. Call it what you will.
Look, whether it's innovation or anything else, For instance, another one might be customer service.
Yes.
There are only two ways to change things. One is, first of all, you as the leader must exemplify this behavior. Okay. So if you're risk averse and say, don't do this, don't try that, it could go wrong, and then you say innovation, it's not going to happen. So you yourself have to be a risk taker, you have to encourage other risk takers, and when things don't work out, you have to have their back and celebrate both things that didn't work as well as things that worked. So role modeling is number one. And second is you need to reward people who take risks, who innovate, whether they succeed the first time or not. People are very quick and intuitive to see what gets rewarded around here. Kissing ass and playing politics is what gets rewarded. That's the behavior you're going to get. If you reward innovation and people who are innovative in every respect, could be in the finance department, could be in the HR department, not just the people building products, you're going to get that. So what you reward is what you're going to get.
As you sow, so shall you reap.
As you sow, so shall you reap.
All right. Ravi, AI. And you are the person that I think many Indians are looking, maybe even globally, would like to hear your views on AI, because you've expounded it well in your second book, lots of interviews. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that. In a world that is increasingly AI dominated, what role do you see for storytelling, intuition, ethics? Where does that fit in? Leadership, humans, etc.
This is a huge question. Okay, two questions, each of which are large. So look, one of the funny things about AI is that it is moving at a very rapid speed, and therefore you will find even people who are incredibly smart and thoughtful and building AI, whether it's a Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Suleiman, or Bill Gates, they will say things which seem to contradict each other completely. So that's one of the challenges for anyone, because it's very confusing. My view is the following, that this is like a tsunami, and people will struggle to adapt fast enough. Companies will struggle to adapt. Societies will struggle to adapt. And therefore, in the short and medium term, things are going to become really, really hard. I believe the scenario where there are very large job losses, very large wage compression, income compression, is quite high. So when people say, oh, don't worry, every technology has lost some jobs, it creates new jobs, and it has always been this way. I think that's wrong in this case. And there's also a time difference horizon. If it creates jobs 100 years from now, but you've lost a lot of jobs now, what matters to you is now.
Is today.
The other thing that is commonly put out is a rubbish statement that says, AI won't replace you. A person using AI will replace you. So don't worry, you just be the person who's using AI. Again, that's too simplistic.
Okay.
Because the reality is, a person using AI tools will be able to do the job of many people. Okay? So there is going to be significant job losses. Just last week, Microsoft Research put out a really good report which says, here are the 40 roles that are going to be most impacted. And if you're in these 40 roles, you don't have to worry for a while. These are all the manual ones. And this is things like software programmer, mathematician, writer, researcher, legal assistant, all these things. So look, I think it's now very clear that if you're in these roles, jobs are going to be affected. We are still not seeing that at a massive scale because inside companies, they're still in pilot and testing mode. There's still lots of issues in terms of deploying AI at scale. But it's going to come really fast, and when it does, I think things are going to be hard for individuals as well as for the companies which are not able to adapt fast enough. In fact, that's why I'm writing a new book, and it's not done yet. The working title is, When Will AI Steal My Job? And the question is not, will AI steal my job? When will it? Okay? And what can I do about it, right? So the subtitle is, How to Flourish in an AI Age. And so there's a lot that you can do to prepare yourself and actually come out on top. And, one of the things you can do is get better at being human. There's a Nobel Prize winning physicist called Arno Penzias. He actually was the one who discovered the cosmic background radiation associated with the Big Bang. And he says, look, it's very simple. If you don't want to be replaced by a machine, stop acting like one. Okay? Which is, be more human. But the problem is our education system, the way we are managed at work, reinforces more the machine-like aspects of things.
Process. And
So what are we taught? We're taught to absorb facts. Okay? We're taught to find information.
Right.
We're taught to analyze problems. We're taught to solve structured problems. All these things can be done better by AI. What AI cannot do yet, and probably for some good time, are the things which are deeply, profoundly human. For instance, empathy. Being able to sense your mood, being able to sense something in common and establish a connect and some trust. This is something machines will struggle to do for quite some time, I believe. So, uniquely human thing. So how do you develop empathy as a quality? Another one is storytelling. You asked that question. So, Yuval Harari, the historian, has written a lot about the fact that our minds are wired to believe stories, not facts. Which is why we are seeing so many autocrats rise all over the world, because they're great at telling stories. And the stories they tell are simple and compelling. Make America great again. Just do what I say, okay? So mind is conditioned to listen to stories. He calls religions, all the religions, the ultimate stories.
absolutely.
Okay? So anybody who knows how to tell compelling stories will have a significant advantage in this AI world. Curiosity. AI can answer questions. But what is the question you should ask is actually a very human quality. The answer you get depends on the question you ask. And therefore he says it is most important, if you've got to solve a problem, to spend the bulk of the time framing the question in a deep and specific manner. Okay? So this is a very human quality. It's called prompt engineering. What is the prompt that you should put in?
It's essentially another way of asking, saying, ask the right questions and you get the right answer.
And you'll get the answer. So this is a very important human quality. Curiosity, judgment, for instance. Look, all these AIs, whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or whatever, all these things, throw out something. And they throw it out with great confidence. Okay, the answer. Then you mix in what information you're getting fed from your various feeds. A lot of it is manipulated by algorithms, a lot of it is false. So here you are, the human in the center, and you're bombarded by answers and responses from AI and information from different sources. You have to apply judgment in deciding what is the course of action.
Yes.
Okay? How do you develop that judgment? That judgment is a uniquely human quality.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make in my book is focus on improving these deeply, deeply human qualities, and you're still going to find a beautiful space in an AI world. And the ultimate one is leadership.
Leadership.
Which we've talked about already. So I'm not at all despondent, but I do think that because people will be slow to wake up and slow to develop these qualities, in the short and medium term, there's going to be a lot of...
Ravi, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and one of the questions that I want to ask you is this. What do I tell my daughter that she should do to survive and thrive in an AI world? And you've summed up many of that right now, and I'm definitely going to recommend that she reads What the Heck Do I Do With My Life, as well as the next one.
Give this book to her.
All right, people, this is what young people and not so young people
because
need to
it's
be
not
reading.
just about AI. It's really about extreme rate of change caused by various factors: climate change, demographics, AI, polarized world, blah de blah. So I would say a couple of things to a young person. One is, this world will be extremely unforgiving of mediocrity. So if you a mediocre engineer, you're a mediocre videographer, whatever, you're going to get crushed. Okay? So you have to be excellent. And the only way you can be excellent at something is if you do what you love and you love what you do. Okay? So I would say to her, figure out by experiments what you love doing, where you have a natural talent and a flair, and pursue it and work intensely and be amongst the best at that, and use AI to augment your capability. So that's kind of one advice I'd give, and it doesn't matter what that is. The second thing is we have to learn to develop our adaptive skills, which we've talked about right throughout this whole conversation. And the way you do that is, the way you develop a growth mindset, etc., is by periodically going completely outside your comfort zone, taking on new challenges that you never have, and making a success of it. And that's how you develop this growth mindset, learning agility, leadership qualities, the capacity to adapt to anything. So be adventurous, be bold, follow your curiosity, take risks, is what I would tell your young daughter.
My 17-year-old daughter, yes. Okay, good advice. I think not just for her, but for anybody.
All of us.
All of us who are starting out.
But they have
Look, many of us have reached a certain stage of our careers and life. So, but it's the younger folks who really who have another 50 years to go or 40 years to go, and they need to make the most of it. So this advice is gold dust for them. Ravi, before we end the AI segment, I just, something that I've always been fascinated by, this concept of free will, right? Does it really exist, etc. But I'm not going into the philosophical aspects of it. But the point is that with AI algorithms increasingly predicting human behavior, and I sense that it's likely to only get better and better with time, right? Because you're interacting with AI on a daily basis. So they know you possibly better than you know yourself. Your take on this in terms of
what? Look, first of all, I'm skeptical that free will exists, okay, or ever existed, because we're all live in society, and we are products of conditioning. So much of what I did and continue to do long after my parents are gone is to try and please them. Okay, where was the free will? But I wanted to please them. I wanted to please my teachers. I wanted to please my managers. I wanted to be seen well by society. So long before there was AI and algorithms, I was very much influenced by all these forces.
That was a generation of people pleasers. You could say that?
It is still so. It has always been so. Again, Harari, the historian, points out. So religion, for instance. So religion is as old as humanity.
Yes.
And it's such a powerful influence on our choices. So now along comes algorithms. AI-powered algorithms are a subset of that. But social media, Facebook algorithms and so on, big problem, because they created bubbles and echo chambers for us, and they predicted what we wanted and fed us more of that, and it led us down some very bad paths. And so AI is going to make all this worse. And this is why I think we have to be very, very much more guarded. So I have a chapter in my book on snakes and ladders and how to avoid the snakes. And so I don't know about free will, but number one I'd say is you have to be very careful about who you believe, what you believe, where you get your information from. And start by shutting down social media, and start by shutting down most media. So, Eric Schmidt, CEO of Google, I love his quote. He says, social media is an amplifier for idiots. Okay? And he should know, he created all this stuff. So,
amplifier and echo chamber.
Amplifier, echo chamber for idiots. So, you don't want to be there. Television today, particularly in India, is horrible. It just makes you angry. So, there's no point doing that. Okay? So, curate carefully where you're getting your information sources and develop critical thinking. Right? So just because something is suggesting A, B, C, or someone is suggesting something, you still need to be able to look at it, analyze whether this comports with your judgment. And so that's a skill that we have to work on and enhance before being susceptible, gullible to whatever algorithms are feeding us or people are feeding us.
Super. Thank you so much, Ravi. With that, we move to our final segment, which is
Perfect.
the rapid fire.
Okay.
So the key here is spontaneity, thinking on your feet,
Yeah.
and giving us the answer that first comes to mind. So don't overthink, Ravi.
Okay.
Just go
Well,
for
you're
it.
not going to give me time to.
All right. A book you gift the most.
Sorry, it's a Buddhist book.
Okay.
But it has a title called Being Nobody.
Being Nobody.
Yeah.
Do you remember the author?
It's a German lady who became a Buddhist monk. But
Okay.
if you just go on Amazon and say Being Nobody.
All right. Thank you. One decision you would make faster if you had a do-over.
Being generous.
Okay. A leader, alive or dead, you'd love to have dinner with.
I've said this before, but it has to be Prime Minister Modi.
Oh,
I'd
fantastic.
love to get inside his mind.
Well, hopefully after this episode is aired, he'll see it and invite you for dinner. All right. A belief you have outgrown.
Leaders are born.
A failure that later felt like fate.
First of all, I don't think I've ever failed, because in my book, the only failure is giving up. I've had plenty of setbacks and disappointments, but I don't
Never
think
a failure.
I've never failed.
So it's always a setback.
It's a setback from which you learn something important.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any setback that felt like fate?
Not really.
Okay. Your leadership anthem, if you had one.
Be the change.
All right. A quote that's tattooed on your brain.
The true potential of a person is both unknown and unknowable. It is impossible to predict what anyone can accomplish through years of passion, toil. This is Carol Dweck, and she uses it in her book called Growth Mindset. And when I look at my own start and what I've been able to do, there's no way I could have predicted all this, and that's true of every one of us.
One habit that keeps you grounded.
Chanting.
Coffee or long walks, your go-to recharge.
Both. Coffee and a long walk.
What's the one thing people misunderstand about you?
If they don't know me well, they think I'm transactional. I'm all about accomplishing something.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ravi. You were far more spontaneous than you give yourself credit for. That was excellent. All right. So we just have one question left, and then we are done with the session. If tomorrow you woke up invisible, or let's say you were no longer around, what's the one leadership mantra that you would like to see live on through people long after you're no longer there? People who you once led, or people who were inspired by you, your books, your videos. What's the one thing that you would like to see?
The one thing I want to impress on everybody is leadership is an act. It's a behavior. It's nothing to do with title and position and power. So it is therefore there is a leader within every one of us, and especially inside you. So unleash that leader, be the change. That's really, really, really important. So many of us don't believe that we are capable of X, Y, Z, let alone leadership. And I think that's all up here.
Super. Thank you very much, Ravi. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Leadership Lounge. Thank you for your time.
Take care. Let me inscribe this and leave it with you. Do you have it?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.